Tonight we have a special Pearl of Wisdom. And of course, our master is behind the scenes getting everything arranged for us. I love that she does all the technical. It's just wonderful. So we're going to be waiting just a second till we go live, and then we'll get everybody ready to rock and roll. And we are live on Facebook. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. We are live with Mynoo Maryel, who is going to be taking us on a big journey tonight for our 85th Pearl of Wisdom. Now, every week we have a Pearl of Wisdom, each one unique and different. Tonight is about romance, which I think we're all interested in. Mynoo is going to share what she calls the 7 flairs of romance. Sometimes we have pillars. Tonight it's flairs. And how to work with these to adopt a romantic lifestyle, which I know we all would enjoy having in our life. And then how to magnetize or refresh intimate romance in your life. So you've chosen to join a really special evening tonight. Thank you all for coming. I can't believe it's 85 Pearls of Wisdom. We started this like the week of pandemic. And here we are on our 85th Pearl of Wisdom. We have 108 total. It's like time flies, and then it doesn't. So, wow, it's just amazing. So I don't know how many of you keep notes, but for those of you who are joining us live on Facebook, get your pen, get your paper ready, because there will be a lot to cover tonight. Now, I'm going to be jumping out a little early tonight, so Mynoo will be closing this one herself. I always miss the end, so I'll be back on Facebook watching it a little bit later to catch every little detail. This is just unique wisdom. You're really not going to hear it anywhere else. We're so fortunate that Mynoo is with us every single week live. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mynoo for our 85th Pearl of Wisdom, romance.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I'm excited about this one. I like like you were saying, the 7 flairs of romance. How cool is that? I thought, oh, let me look up. What does flair actually mean, And we'll begin with that in a moment. So let's begin. So yes, what's flair? I thought 7 flairs of romance. It's like an instinctive aptitude or ability for doing something well. So having 7 special instinctive aptitude, which enriches our ability for doing romance, I think it's a very cool Pearl of Wisdom. So let's begin. I mean, let's even look at what does romance actually mean? It's a feeling of excitement. And dictionary also talks about it's a feeling of excitement and mystery associated with love. Well, love, as you know, from my perspective, is the innate vibration of being human. And one of the things that I learned during the time that I embarked on my journey of spiritual awakenings is that romance, in fact, is not, it's not about like an outmoded concept. It's far from it. It's in fact, it's a precept of merging with the divine as it manifests within you and through you within another human being. It's also playfulness. It literally is like something that heralds springtime, flowers, new life. You don't have to be in a partnership or any form of intimacy to evoke romance. You can manifest it for yourself through laughter, through surrounding yourself with beauty, indulging in treats that make your heart sing, that actually invoke, activate wonderment. And if you can't have access to that, it could be just luxurious treats, could be a bouquet of flowers, whatever it may be. It's the life force. Romance is the life force of the universe. And it's if you as a human take on board that your innate vibration is love, romance as the life force of the universe is a given. You have it. it's up to you now to evoke, because it's already invoked. It's up to you now to evoke that playfulness that heralds the springtime of flowers and a new life. So what are the 7 flairs that actually instinctively enrich your capacity to further accentuate romance? The first one is, I never edit these words when they come in. I just go deeper into what does this actually mean. So the first one is Freya, Freya, or Freja, because she's in fact a Scandinavian goddess of love in Scandinavian mythology. She's associated with fertility, love, beauty, gold, associated with good fortune, sunshine, fine weather. And it's I think the day of the week, Friday, has been inspired by Freya. So as a flair of romance, it's the vibrancy of Freya, which is all about, fertility, love, beauty, abundance, an acceptance of life and death, all coexisting, presencing yourself in a state of experiencing good fortune. You can imagine how that takes away any fear that you might have associated with romance, or any skepticism that you may hold about romance. So when I looked at it, I thought, okay, this is interesting. The whole idea of the Pearls of Wisdom is that if you only ever worked on one of the 108, you actually have the capability and capacity to co-create a world that delivers to everyone. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. If I took this one flair of Freya, I always like to suggest do a lay of the land. So I looked at the lay of the land in the context of, where did I experience the Freya vibe in me? And I found 2 very specific times in my life where this was completely present. And I would say it was a little bit unusual to find that. The first one was, I'm sure when I was a child, I was very Freya-like, with the spring in my step and all of that. But as an adult, the time that I first went to Saudi Arabia after my marriage, when I decided that, okay, I'm actually going to work here, even though women weren't allowed to work, I had to follow the rules of the country at the time. So women could be teachers, nurses, or doctors, and I wasn't a nurse and I wasn't a doctor, but I could be a teacher. What would I teach and who would I teach it to? And I chose computer studies because that is something that I knew. Who would I teach it to? It had to be women. But which women are going to learn computer studies, and for what? Because women aren't allowed to work anyway. And, at the most, you had desktop computers. Laptops weren't even there. I'm talking about 1983, so quite some time ago. And I chose to create an Institute of Computer Studies for women. And it had to be women who were Saudi women who had been educated abroad, so could speak English. And they had an inkling of what this computer revolution was making available to the world. So they would be curious and interested. And it was literally very Freya-like, in terms of making it all come about and making it happen. I totally had a spring in my step and made it very feminine. So Freya is also ladylike. She is the goddess of love in Scandinavian mythology, associated with fertility, love, beauty, goal, death, life, aliveness, good fortune. So once I made that choice, literally, I saw how it unfolded. It's like the universe literally rose up to come and support me in making it happen. It feels like, well, okay, so you're opening an institute for computer studies for women, so go open it, But it wasn't like that. I couldn't just advertise for students because it's adult education. I couldn't just advertise for teachers because that also wasn't done in that country for adult women, particularly at that time. It's very different now. So I chose a very feminine way of making it happen, created a gourmet club and wrote to each embassy to nominate one woman from their embassy to join the gourmet club. And they chose, it was like quite a special thing. And the reason for doing that was I felt the teachers who had been educated abroad on computer studies would come from there. I didn't know for sure. I was 23 years old at the time. But, that's what I did. And sure enough, the teachers came from there. Now, how do I get students? Saudi women who spoke English and had a Western education. So we created a book club. And we invited, I got Yasser Arafat was the Palestinian leader at the time. His sister was there. And she was very, very well connected to, the Saudi women's circles, and particularly those that have been educated abroad. So we created that book club. And that is where the students came from. Within 3 months, it was oversubscribed. And that was a very Freya-like solution that was laid out. I always say it is Saudi Arabia that made me an entrepreneur, because I literally had to get out of my box. There's nothing that I knew other than the content of my training programs, but there's nothing that I knew in terms of how to create a business or create a project I could apply there, because none of those means were available. So it literally was like a fresh space, literally like springtime. And it felt that way to the women. Those that were a part of the gourmet club were super excited. And those that were a part of the book club were super excited as well. And it was amazing to actually pull that together. And that was romance. I had my head down. I truly harnessed the life force of the universe to bring about this occurrence. The exciting thing about this Pearl of Wisdom, I always talk about 7 habits, 7 pillars, 7, and here it is 7 flairs or 7 pathways. Each one of these, I always say, do them in sequence. And one thing builds on another, builds on another. But when it comes to romance, you can do it in any order you like. Each one is whole and complete. You don't need to even build on it. Now, if you were to think about each one of us, doesn't matter how old you are, each one of us have somewhere where we have adopted being afraid. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You've taken that on and literally stood in a clearing of good fortune, sunshine, fine weather, feeling like everything is just so perfectly orchestrated to have you move forward. A little bit of an adventure. As long as you understand that romance is the life force of the universe, and it already is something that you are privy to, that you already have access to it. All you're doing with these 7 flairs is literally flaring up your own ability and your own capacity to be able to adopt it as a lifestyle, so that this connection to the divine within you that automatically brings that lightness of being, that invincible quality that Goddess Freya has in you, you invoke that in others. The second one, the second flare is radiant. And what is radiant? Radiant is, it's as if you're sending out a light that is shining or glowing brightly. You are in this space of illumination and you're sending out that light, that is shining and glowing brightly. I mean, think about what I just shared about this very simple story from my life about creating this Institute for Computer Studies for Women in 1983, when Saudi Arabia was a very different place. What is it that got this institute to happen? And within 3 months, we were oversubscribed. It was somehow this project, the individuals that were involved in it, like each person that came in, was radiant. The project itself was radiant, sending out a light that is shining or glowing brightly. I mean, the institute hadn't even started, and we had raving fans that were actually registering and joining it. We had both a waiting list of teachers as well as a waiting list of students. And I didn't feel overwhelmed. I mean, I've created businesses and I've had experiences in here in London where it felt like overwhelmed when you achieve your, business plan for several years in a matter of weeks. It felt like overwhelm. Here we'd exceeded our year's business plan even before the institute began. Well, because I was radiating this amazing shining light that was shining brightly, I had the wherewithal, I had the life force that enabled me to keep going with this. It was, I talk about thriving strategies, I talk about regenerative strategies. This was completely regenerative. Each teacher that I took on just immediately, was radiating her light within her circle. And our feeder was this book club. So people really, the women really felt that they got the institute and they also got this amazing circle and they got these amazing books that they could read and discuss. It was a weekly book club, would you believe? Each week a book was being read because there was so much time that the women had. So there was such a buzz about it. Even though it was sort of under the radar, it wasn't something that had to be hush-hush. It wasn't about, having press articles, or there was no social media at the time. It was nothing like that. It was completely 100%, not just word of mouth. I think there was something about this radiance piece that was playing out. It was truly radiant romance in action. Now, I'm asking you, when you do the lay of the land on the 7 flares of romance, really go in and look at where has this occurred in your life. Even if you find one instant, you have actually flicked that switch on of cellular memory. And you know that once the cellular memory is activated, you can go back to that place again. I know for myself, all aspects of my life were in a state of romance. Intellectual, business, friendship, intimate, all in intimacy, all of it. And that becomes available to us with this. The third flare of romance is optimism. So just another reconnection to the word flare. right? It's an instinctive aptitude or ability for doing something well. So each one of these, Freya, enriches that special instinctive ability in you for doing romance well. Radiant does the same thing. Special instinctive aptitude or ability for doing romance well. And now the third one, which is optimism. And these are all things that, okay, radiance, you don't know whether you're feeling radiant or not. But if you experience a glow in you, you can see that when you've got it. Optimism certainly is something that you can actually engage in doing certain things or being a certain way, where optimism can become integral to how you show up in the world. Optimists see the positive side of things. They expect things to turn out well. They seem to have their belief, and as a result, this skill or ability to make good things happen. I mean, I know this for myself because I was an eternal optimist. I live in the land of miracles now, so it's beyond optimism. It is very grounded in what is. But you can, regardless of whatever is going on, find a way of acknowledging the positive aspects of being in that situation. And coming from a space where, whatever occurs, there is some gift in it for us. So here, when I looked at the optimism as a flair that enriches this special instinctive ability for romance, and I said, okay, let me just anchor it in reality. I have had many, many opportunities where I have chosen the optimist's way. And, there are many times I've chosen the optimist's way, but where the link to romance got established was not necessarily each time, every time. Where the link to romance got established is where I was able to acknowledge what it is that was bothering me, what it is that was contributing to an undertone. Because when it comes to a romance lifestyle, there is no undertone. You literally are this free spirit with which you're showing up in the world. So to remove an undertone and really step into becoming an optimist, you acknowledge everything that forms that undertone. And the undertone often is worries, hopes, anxiousness, whatever it might be. So just really acknowledging those layers of undertones enables you to then adopt the optimist way and look at, in my world, I don't necessarily look at the positive side of things. I actually look at what is the positive aspect of being in this situation. So rather than put the blinkers on and avoid looking at that which may be bothering me or bothering others, because when you are in a situation where there are several people that are bothered by what's going on, and you start spouting out all the positive things in that situation, it actually attracts a huge amount of adverse reaction towards you. And then you're in a battleground, fending for yourself, or sometimes defending yourself. That takes away the optimism. So by actually taking the time before you go into the space where everyone else is, by you really acknowledging the fullness of what exists and getting to a point where you have acknowledged all that you could and you unconditionally accept what is, then you step forward, you actually land in the optimism, which becomes a flair for romance. And it starts to shift where people are at. very powerfully. When you choose any of these 7 and you really work with them as a flare, you do it with precision. Precision, and that is what creates the perfection which comes from embracing all imperfections. And then you have really the best of all worlds. So optimism as a flare isn't about looking at the positive side. It is about understanding what is in its fullness and choosing to step into what are the positive aspects of being in this situation. I could have gone in, and I'm just staying with the story of Institute for Computer Studies for Women. I could have gone in and said, oh, I had such a high-flying career and one of these, super performers taken on by a very powerful organization and put through their internship program. And here I am, sitting at home in a country where I can't even work. I could have just sat and done that. And I could have become an optimist, looking at the positive side, which is, oh, I'm going to be a homemaker. I'm going to apply my skills in doing that. And I did think that for a while, but I know I felt deeply dissatisfied with him. Because I was in an industry it was the making of the computer industry as we know it now. It literally the old fuddy-duddy huge rooms with these huge computers with blinking lights that only the few knew what they were about was shifting to giving people the power to this technology literally in the palm of their hands. And I was right at the cusp of that industry. I would have put on a positive side, optimistic look, but I didn't. I would be feeling very deprived of what I know I was capable of. Instead, I went into, well, what are the positive aspects of being in this situation? One of the positive aspects was it took me out of the box. I could actually truly get creative. And being able to innovate and apply creativity with so many boundaries basically meant that I could master being an innovator and a creative in any situation. Whether I pulled it off or not, it was actually going to be great fun innovating. And in the process of doing so, I would have created a circle of new connections and a network, maybe a collection of networks with people from all these different parts of the world, which I so loved. It was that project, it was foundational to me becoming a global citizen. And that came from looking at the positive aspects of being in this situation. I didn't even know where we would have the institute. It wasn't an online thing, and at the time it was always physical. And it was the husband of one of the women that stepped forward. He had lots of buildings. It's a Saudi man. And he literally took us into this building, gave us a big bunch of keys and said, well, choose the one that you want and take it. So if I had, okay, there are all these issues, I'm only going to look at the positive side, I would not be fully open to opportunities. I would have had a big chunk of my brain always pushing away the negative, and an unrequited regret would start to formulate within my unconscious or subconscious. And that was not the case. I acknowledged fully what the situation was. And I wasn't spiritually awakened as I am now. My point here is, with this stuff, since then, since I've had this series of spiritual awakenings, I just live a very different kind of life. So, but that can sometimes become unrelatable to people. So me sharing with you the 7 flairs of romance, I've chosen a story which anybody can have a story like that. It may not be as intense or as extreme as, being in a country where women aren't allowed to work and opening a whole new business dedicated to women there. But you'll have your own, you'll have your own. And the interesting thing is, whatever has ever occurred in your life that has had any form of meaningful impact, whether it had that meaningful impact on you, whether that meaningful impact was positive or negative, the energy signature of the nuances that came together to make that happen exist as fresh as they were when you were playing it out. So do have a go with this, do have a go with this. Find something from your life. You can absolutely learn from what I'm saying, and that'll create some ahas where you will anchor it as your reality is finding an incident like this in your life. I'm choosing one to link all of these 7 flairs, and you may have, 7 different instances for each of the flairs, and either way is fine. The main thing here is anchor it at a cellular memory level, bring that remembrance back, and romance will become invoked and evoked as your reality in your field right here, right now. The 4th flair is, it's laurel. Laurel is like bestowing an award or a praise in recognition of an achievement. As a flair of romance, what you're doing here is, you can certainly do it where you have an intimate relationship with another. If you are bestowing an award or praise on this other person, recognizing them for an achievement, it has a very positive impact on the relationship. Now, you could also do this in terms of bestowing praise in recognition of an achievement of you of your relationship, of your relating to each other, of your moments of intimate sharing. If you start acknowledging that, like a laurel, you're really bestowing, it doesn't feel patronizing. It actually feels a very powerful sharing of co-creation. And when you acknowledge that co-creation with your intimate other, you together go into a space of this laurel flare that actually flares up romance. And it transforms your relationship. You're recognizing an achievement. Patronizing can feel patronizing, where you're not necessarily linking, you're just recognizing, but not necessarily linking it or grounding it to a real achievement. It can start to feel patronizing. But when you are actually awarding or praising and recognizing an achievement, it grounds it in reality. It is not patronizing. It actually has you and the other person own up and share the joy that comes from this recognition of this achievement. And sometimes that achievement is achieved together. Now, because of how I look at romance, a life force of the universe, a place where I can access that life force simply by adding laughter, going on an adventure, letting my hair down. I can use the laurel flare on myself also. So when I started, I started engaging with this romance as a way of life in 2010. Doreen Virtue has these goddess cards. She has many such cards. She has these goddess cards. So every morning I would do my morning practice of pranayam, yoga stretching, meditation, and then I would pull out a goddess card. And I remember there was a whole week, literally the first of the 3 weeks in Bali that I spent, every day I was picking out this card with Lady Guinevere, and it was romance as a way of life. I mean, clearly that was the message for me, and I'm like, I've left everything, the first time in I don't know how many decades, I'm living alone in a hotel room. And this card of romance is coming up, So I had this deluded idea that romance equals, having an intimate connection with someone that you really, truly cared about. And it was in that week of really going into romance as a way of life, as this life force of the universe, I chose the laurel flare and started acknowledging those times in my life where I experienced this experience of romance. And unbeknown to me, the 7 flares got crystallized afterwards as the 7 flares, very distinct. But I certainly was able to look at where that radiance existed. I was able to look at the optimism. I mean, this whole story of, the scale, the depth and expansiveness of contribution to my life that this opening of this Institute for Computer Studies had emerged from the laurel flare, actually. And I saw how all of these flares connected to that one incident. And I'd had several others as well, but that one was like so nuanced in terms of enriching romance and anchoring that romance experience in my everyday life. There was me awarding, praising, recognizing myself for that achievement. Very powerful. And with that, I mean, the amazing thing was, once you get into this space and you are bestowing that praise on yourself, recognizing yourself for that achievement, you automatically start noticing it around you. And I had the gift of having 2 out of the 3 weeks just by myself in this resort. Just so happened by accident, and there are no accidents, of course. I had the opportunity of really practicing this with these amazing Balinese people who were serving me. So they were stepping into their own experience of romance. Several years later, when I chose to make Bali my home, many of these people, just moved, became, one became my driver for several years. Another one decided to come and she called herself the yoga chef. It all emerged from that time where I was practicing this on myself, and automatically, without thinking about it, I was in that rhythm of bestowing praise and awarding the recognition of achievement with people. I mean, can you imagine how enriching it is when you praise someone and you actually anchor it in something that has actually been achieved? The authenticity of that connection that you make is huge, because you have taken the care of connecting the dots yourself. I saw this approach transformed my relationship to my son, even at a much younger age. So just praising him did nothing for him. That was like, okay, so what do you want? But when I actually bestow this praise in recognition of a specific achievement, it would be illuminating. He would feel radiant. Like, I didn't realize that. I had a very cute incident, actually, because I'm in London right now, and I was in Dubai before this. I had an opportunity to just have good one-to-one strolls with my 4.5-year-old, who's become very, very talkative. So he says to me that, he calls me Mynoo Oma. Oma is grandma in German, and Mynoo is my name. So he goes into, Mynoo Oma, I'm a very good runner. He is, actually. It's really a super fast runner. He says, you know how I do it? Yes. Okay, so I have a boy in my brain. I call it brain boy. And my brain boy shows me how to run very fast, super fast. So when I want to run super fast, I call my brain boy and say, show me. And the brain boy shows me, and then I just run very fast. I show you, Mynoo Oma? Yes, I said. So off he goes. This is without the brain boy. Off he goes, running. So now I bring the brain boy in. And this kid is running like twice as fast with his brain boy. So clearly he's talking about visioning, by himself. And so it was like so thrilling, the experience to see, wow, this kid is talking about visioning, and he's created his own way of, having his own Leo, the brain boy, a mentor that gets him to run so fast. So then we are in the car, going somewhere, and there's a little bit of hecticness that got the kids into the car and stuff. So I just started sharing this story with my son and my daughter-in-law. And I'm like, really, here I am bestowing, a praise in recognition of an achievement, of this discovery, of this brain boy thing. This brain boy can teach him many things. And so it completely transformed Leo from being this grumpy kid who was just shoved into the car because he was going to go somewhere with these bunch of adults where he did not want to go, to someone who really started talking about how he's going to use this brain boy in different ways. And he says something, how I do these paintings, and they're like a little bit Mondrian type paintings with blocks and stuff. He says, Mynoo Oma, I'm going to build with my magnetiles your painting. And then it will be, he says, it'll be a sculpture. Okay. He sparked that. Yesterday, he shares a photograph. I'll share it with you, where he's emulating my painting using his building blocks. So it all emerged from it, like so much, the multiplied effect of this, romance lifestyle occurs with Laurel. And it began with, my understanding of this began with me bestowing and rewarding myself for recognizing specific achievements in my life. And that's how I started using, that's the approach I started using in bestowing praise. At that point, here's a kid who's agitated, me saying, oh, Elio is such a good boy. And he would have just forget it. I want this. I don't want this. This is where he would go. Instead, I chose the Laurel approach, and romance came in. Everybody was engaged and enthused about it because it was anchored in recognizing a specific achievement. What a beautiful way of giving feedback, truly. I get very excited about these pearls of wisdom. The fifth one is exalted. This is an interesting word, a choice of word, I thought. And basically, it is like, it's as if it raises you in rank and power or character, elevated by praise or somehow glorified. And it goes very well with the laurel part. It's not patronizing still. It literally is very grounded. So now suddenly Eleo has become our teacher of how you envision. How cool is that? That he's actually created this character, the brain boy Eleo. So now he can do anything because he gets to brain boy and the brain boy shows him the vision and then he goes and does it. So it's pretty cool. So it's as if he's recognizing. And so suddenly this kid, instead of being someone who you go around saying, oh, do this and don't do this, we are like, okay, so we are about to go on a 40-minute ride in this car, and the traffic is it's not that great. So how can we have a lot of fun in the car? Oh, Elio, do you want to see if your brain boy Elio has anything to show you? He says, we can do sing-along Christmas songs. Okay, we can. I don't really know. I know jingle bells, jingle bells. I'm no one to lead a sing-along. I said, no, Mynoo, I will lead. And then he starts. He says, these are the 3 songs we will sing. This is a 4-year-old telling us. These are the 3 songs we will sing. I begin singing this song, and when I finish one time I sing it, you start your song, which is a different song. He says, I will keep singing my song. You sing your song. And then after you do it once, then Mama will start her. So like this thing is being orchestrated, of the sing-along. It was a 40-minute complete, thrilling, joy-filled experience of all of us singing this. This is so much fun. But that became because he was exalted into being a leader. Just by me sharing about this discovery of this brain boy Eleo and the impact that brain boy Eleo had on his running, he owned that place. And it became a collaborative co-creation, as opposed to command, oh, sit down there, wear your seatbelt, don't stand up, talk softly, none of that. And normally a 40-minute ride with little Emilio, the 18-month-old, sitting on his baby cot chair would actually not be very pleasant. This little one, we are all singing along, he's also singing along. And what a cellular memory that it's etched in my life and everyone's life. But that's possible. That's possible. I realized for myself, if I go back to those times in Bali where I was bestowing, praising, and recognizing the achievements of myself, and then I go into this exalted position, realizing that if I could do this in an environment in Saudi Arabia where I wasn't even spiritually awakened, I can now, many years later, because I've chosen to live an extraordinary life and all aspects of my life coexist, I can do that too. Don't know how, but I didn't know how then. So I'll find a way. It will happen. I literally was able to own that position of leadership. So I don't know how became this like spark fluid that actually sparked a sparkle in my eyes and a spring in my step to do this the romance way. As opposed to, oh my God, I've always looked at someone else who's done it and, emulated them. There's no one that I can find. I could have wallowed in that. Or it was fine to have this extraordinary life thing happen in Bali. That was 3 weeks in Bali. It's not really, can't happen anywhere else. Well, no. Because I had done this, I chose, no, I did it then. It is real. I can do it now. I don't have to give up on this extraordinary life. And it occurred. Connect the dots. It's never too late. Romance is here to stay because it is the life force of the universe. Whether the planet exists or not, the universe continues. So it's a life force of the universe. We have it on tap. It's up to you to turn the tap on. The sixth flair for romance is magnanimous. Magnanimous, it really comes from that Latin magnus, great. Animus, soul, the great soul. It literally describes us as the soul being that we are. Owning the magnanimity of the soul presence. It's a powerful word. Magnanimous is also a pearl of wisdom that I will do at some point. But today it's one of the flairs. It's as if it immediately connects you to the spirit of you. When you're plugged into the spirit of you, you are expansive. You are limitless. There is nothing that holds you back, holds you down. There are no boundaries, and there is a perfect level of discernment. It's as if you adopt a noble stature, and you move forward with courage and bravery when you are in this magnanimous, innate vibe. And it is one of the flairs of romance. If of everything that I've talked about, if you between today and next week that we get together, just picked 1 or 2 times in your life where you adopted the magnanimous flair, it'll transform your relationship to aliveness. It's in this magnanimity. There are many of you who've done the journey into miracles, living from source. When you discovered your source mastery. What is the landing of the master? The master lands and you literally rise in your magnanimity. Magnus animus, the great soul presence of you. I don't feel there's anything more that I want to say about this other than find where you have risen to the occasion in this way. And you will find many, many times, however down and out you may feel, even if you find one occasion where you see yourself, magnanimous in how you have dealt with a particular situation. I mean, the interesting thing is we've all of us here, and there's so many of us in the world have gone through 2020, 2021, and here we are in 2022. So during those time of the crown phenomenon, there have been many moments where you have been magnanimous. It may be you've been magnanimous in how you took a difficult news and turned it around, magnanimous in how you dealt with being COVID positive, magnanimous in how you might have supported others that were impacted adversely by what was going on. Acknowledge even one of those, and your cellular memory of magnanimous, the magnanimous you is activated. Romance is the reality. It just is. It's truly a flair that instinctively enriches, enhances your ability to live this romance lifestyle, harnessing romance as the life force of the universe, bringing it into you and having it play out in every relationship. it's one of the most heart-opening, truly makes you this big-hearted person, this particular flare. And the seventh one is captivating. Captivating. What is captivating? It's as if when you're captivating or someone is captivating, they're able to influence with this special charm. There's an art to it sometimes, or a trait, and it has an irresistible appeal. I mean, this was such a fun lay of the land experience. This is where I went, okay, last 5 years, where have I been captivating? I enjoyed it so much that I thought, oh, I actually want to go into the last 1 year and then last 2 years. And it was phenomenal to find so many instances where I saw I had this special charm, and a trait that made me or the message that I was taking forward have irresistible appeal. I'm sharing about me. You do it for yourself. It isn't that good for you. No, you've got it as much as I have. Big, small, captivating moments. I mean, even this little thing that I shared about Elio, the fact that I picked it up, it could have just been some conversation with me not being present to him, but, going out shopping, I became very present to this. Whoa, this kid is onto something with this brain boy Elio. It captivated me. And in me sharing, it literally was a captivating experience for all. And then that captivating experience multiplied to a sing-along 40-minute traffic-ridden car ride. Irresistible appeal. And here I'm sharing it with you. Spreading that infectiousness of wonder and joy. That's romance, the 7 flairs of romance. Seriously, enjoy. You'll be coming into the holiday season, take the time, have 20 minutes a day with one of the flairs, and see how the holiday period turns out for you. It's pretty amazing. Adopt the magnanimous one between now and the next week that we get together. And I look forward to seeing you all in a week. Thank you. I know that Catherine had an acting assignment, so she's had to leave. So thank you very much. Namaste.